Ben, do you want to see this real quick? I probably should. Or did you want to break it out? I think Brett did that as well, but...
And we've got air conditioning on the top of that unit. I don't know if we should have said it's just no difference for the whole place. And the side and the children. Now they pull it up. And it's got air conditioning that doesn't get on shore.
You want to see this one? Sure. That's the ordinance one.
Ever feel like you're in the middle? All the time. That's a good idea. These signs right there.
How fitting you bring the duck to the park meeting, Jerry.
This is a little invention of my son's, all right?
Hello. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Charter Township of Comstock Parks and Recreation for Monday, July 13th, 2026. Before we continue down the line here, I just want to let you know that we will open our meeting as I have just done. And then we will also have a joint meeting with the Township Board shortly after comments. We will go through that meeting, and then we will, that will be adjourned, and we will go back to resume our regular Parks Board meeting. So there's a little nesting there, so just so you aren't confused with that. The first item on our agenda is to approval of the agenda. Is there a motion for approval?
I motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Okay. No objections noted, so moved. The next item is public comments. I do want to read that some of the guidelines for that. A citizen may state his or her name and address and may speak only one at a time for no more than 3 minutes. This time may not be given to another citizen to extend their time. During this time, you will be making statements to the board without discussion from the board members, but you are welcome to make an appointment with the Commission Secretary or Parks Director to discuss your comments further, and their contact information is located by the door. So with that, are there any public comments?
Have your mic on.
Thank you. I don't know what happened at the lake or anything, but my son goes up there with his family to play disc golf and stuff like that. You guys are punishing everybody for what one person did, from my understanding. They go up there, they have a family outing. My nephew gets his kids like every other weekend, and they all go up there like on a family outing, and they play disc golf. My son has his kids, so he takes them up there also. The kids just love it, love doing that disc golf. Neither one of them drink or smoke. So you're punishing everybody for what one person, like, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 people did. They have respect for that park. They go up there and disc golf course, they pick up papers and stuff like that. I understand that you got a league that goes up there, that's not my concern. If they're doing it, punish them. Don't punish the people for this. I don't know if it was closed the 4th of July weekend or not. I had plans to go there. Pardon?
I checked on it.
Oh, it wasn't closed?
Weekend, as far as I know.
Yeah, but anyway, I wanted to take my family there for a picnic or something. Couldn't even do that because it's the closest thing to me. I can't drive a long ways. So thank God I didn't buy my permit because I would have made you guys pay me back. And the park down there on Salary Street, you guys have to do something about that down there. You got to get new play equipment and stuff down there. That equipment's all ruined from these homeless, sleeping in it and stuff like that. That needs to be cleaned up. And if you look at the population of kids around there, there's a lot of children. You know, instead of them getting in trouble, fix up some of these parks. You didn't have to put one up there by the cemetery for crying out loud. That was a terrible mistake you guys made. See homeless people up there all the time, in the bathrooms and stuff, sleeping. And on the playground equipment itself, you know, I still say you guys made a mistake by putting it there, but as far as the disc golfing in Campbell Lake, you guys fixed that up for what? So public can't use it? Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more public comments?
Hi, I'm Danny Mitchell. I've been a Comstock resident for some time now. I once owned the house over by Warden Avenue by the waterfall. I now rent on H Avenue by the course. I'm new to disc golf. I've been playing for a year. A big part of that is to the KACES group that invited me out. A group of friends have been playing there for some time. Just wanted to speak on some facts on behalf of Larry. I know he's busy running a league on Mondays, but there was a formal conversation initially on all this that he wasn't invited into, as well as he was never even made aware that there were issues until there was an enforcer there. Being new to disc golf, I thought my opinion mattered a little bit because I don't have this biased opinion that I've been with this group for months and years and all this. It's been a very important part of my life. I love that course. It's been a big part of me getting out of the house and going down the road to, even if it's just the front nine, just getting out of the house. I work in technology for a living, so connecting with nature is a very important thing to me. And I can go play any course in the state and I don't have to worry about people popping out of bushes and stalking people and whatever. So again, I understand that, you know, there's some things to uphold. I'd question, are other parks having to do that? What about the unmanaged parks? Are they just going to hell? Probably not. These parks are being played, they're being ran, they're being also upkept by a tremendous community that has taken their own hard-earned dollar and time to clean this park up for you. And with this whole recent events with KACES, I wish it could be hashed out. I wish it could be discussed, but I question you all. Do you want us to have a discussion? Because you had one without us. You had one without the community. And so I really kind of aim that back to you all, because Larry had keys to the park, was selling parking permits, you know. That's a lot of parking permits. I wonder in the years to come if that's going to impact, obviously, the township, because disc golf not only is big across the world, but Robert Morris Park was on the map in worlds and brought in a lot of economy during that time too. So I'm new to the sport, but I'm doing research. Again, I was really upset with how things went down. I know that I personally witnessed Larry LeBon being harassed otherwise by the enforcer multiple occasions about the same things. I was there the day when the duct tape went across the board and they decided in the middle of a round to change the time in which they had to be out of there. And I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. We've been at, another park since, so I'm just voicing my concerns on the matter, very upset with how all this went down initially, and yeah, I'd like it to be rehashed and reach out to Larry via email.
Thank you so much. That's your 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Thank you so much.
Yeah, reach out via email, have formal conversation. Thanks.
Okay, is there more public comment?
Hello, my name is Brock. I live in Comstock. I've been here for most of my life. I'm in charge of cleaning up the parks, and I'm with the Neal Streak, formerly over here at Miro. So I would just like to say a few things. With drug use and alcohol use at the parks, it seems like it's harmless at times and it doesn't really matter. I have literally caught people smoking marijuana, tell them to leave, and they pulled knives on me. Let's see. There has been over 10 needles I found loaded at this park over here. I found meth pipes under the pavilions while I was cleaning it up. There has been a father, or sorry, it was like a grandfather with a little girl, and they were flying a kite, and somebody just lit up a joint over there, and the smoke starts blowing, and he took the kid away. These parks were for the children and for families. It isn't for just partying, and there's never been a time in our law that has ever allowed you to be under the influence of anything. You have not been able to smoke weed in public. You have not been allowed to drink in public. And just because it's at the park does not mean the law just automatically disappears. And the thing about the key that really bothers me is that a key means that you were given trust. And yes, you could have been doing these things, but laws and rules, when you are entrusted with that and you are entrusted with your group, you're responsible for your group and how they behave, plain and simple, and it infuriates me that it's like, well, we only really want to focus on like the homeless doing drugs, but everybody else can do it. It's fine. It's not fine. People still leave, family still leaves, and that is not really what we want here. We want an open community for all where everybody feels comfortable being at. And it got to a point with the needles, especially, I was afraid to like lift the trash bags because I was afraid it was going to poke me in the leg. And these are things that we go through. And it's not just somebody out on the disc golf having a beer. It's everything else on top of that. And on top of that, I don't know anybody that really walks to Robert Morris. So if you're drinking on the course or smoking, you get in a car, you're driving under the influence. I mean, again, breaking law after law. It's not just an ordinance. It's a public safety thing. So with that, I would say thank you. Those are my concerns. That's what I think of. So.
Thank you.
So how do you know that disc golf is part of the league?
What?
Excuse me, and it's still public comment. All right, thank you.
I'm Alex Royer. I've been part of the K-Aces since 2016. I started playing Robert Morris in 2006. I had spoke last week about basically what is your guys' intentions with the league. Are they banned? So forth, so forth. Now I wanted to focus on basically the revenue loss you guys will have and or the amount of money that I personally have saved you guys or the league themselves have saved you guys. I had multiple accounts where you had an employee who would message me directly asking to come out, remove trees, remove brushes on my dime, not the taxpayers. My dime. I also had numerous times where I would just go out because I saw something unsafe, a widowmaker, whatever it may be, go out, take care of it because I didn't want the family or someone to get hurt from a fallen tree, or I'd go directly after a storm and inspect the entire course on my own time and take care of it. To my knowledge, 2016 was the first year that the park ever had a budget surplus, where you guys actually made more money than what you guys budgeted for. And that was solely because of what the disc golf community did the previous year. It put Robert Morris literally on the map worldwide. Over 14 different countries, members of the best disc golfers in the world, came to play this course. And most likely after this year, they won't ever be able to play it again, because those baskets will be pulled, and or our league will be banned, and or won't feel welcomed anymore. The amount, like 2007, hole 6 basket was stolen. You guys didn't pay for it to get replaced. We took money out of our own league and replaced it. You guys have helped with some stuff, but majority it's the disc golf community paying for it. And now it's gonna be the disc golf community and the families that wanna go out there and play outside of our league. So basically I'm just asking, like, what are you guys' intentions? Why are we here doing this? Why are we being punished? I do agree with him with the drinking and the smoking. I don't do that stuff, but in the same time.
I'm sorry to cut you off. That was your 3 minutes. Thank you.
My name's Zach Mason. I'm also a longtime member of the KASIS community, also former employee at Robert Morris Park. So I think I can kind of bring a little bit of perspective from both sides. I do also want to support what Alex was just finishing up in. You know, the park has every right to enforce their rules, whether it be on drinking and smoking in the park. Again, not every disc golfer that comes drinks and smokes in the park. So I just have some questions. I know, obviously, I can't get a direct answer to, you know, during this, you know, time that I have, but I am really curious to know why, you know, there was a decision to send an enforcement officer out on league night rather than directly communicate with the league itself regarding, you know, smoking and drinking in the park if it was a problem. I think that would probably be the first step that I would take if I was, you know, making that decision. My follow-up question to that would be, you know, was the enforcement officer only sent out on Thursdays during league nights, or was the enforcement officer also sent out on every other night of the week in every other area of the park, or were they just patrolling, you know, the disc golf course on league night? I also kind of have an issue with the article and some of the quotes from the article coming from the Township, the WWMT article regarding the park closure, which definitely makes it seem like the threats themselves are coming from the league, which to my knowledge they weren't. There was a Wood TV8 article follow-up kind of making it seem like it was just some random patrons of the park who took issue with being charged for entry. Again, why was there no clear communication that these two things were not necessarily related? I also, again, I'm curious to know whether or not there was an effort made ahead of time to communicate with Larry regarding the key and locking up the park and the park closure time. As it was mentioned earlier, we came in one night and I think the park closure sign said about 9:45, and on our way out, it was taped over and said 9 p.m. So just have a lot of questions and concerns regarding how this whole ordeal was handled. I definitely think it could have been handled a lot better. Obviously, I don't condone any kind of threats being made by anybody, league or otherwise, but it's definitely kind of put us in a weird position to one day, you know, for the entire time that we had been there at the league, these rules hadn't been enforced. And then all of a sudden we come in and, you know, somebody is kind of following league members around and issuing citations for things as minor as, from what I've heard, swearing on the course. And then obviously, you know, drinking beer and smoking weed, which again, you have every right to enforce those rules. I just kind of am curious to know whether those were being targeted towards league members in particular, or if it was an across-the-board effort. So that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any more public comment?
Evening, I'm Jeff Ampey. I've been a resident of Comstock Township for over 30 years, and I love our parks. My kids grew up in these parks. My grandkids grew up in them. Today, I know grandkids are pretty much grown, but I still hang out in these parks. And when I find problems, I usually call them into the parks. And I talked to Dakota quite a bit. Not too long ago over in Green Meadow, I found 48 feet of chain link fence missing. And that was, I think it was Homeless looking at it for the metal. But one thing that really does concern me is I refer young kids to the park for summer jobs. I think it's a great opportunity, especially when it's a first job. I always thought of it as a safe thing to do. But when I hear that somebody is threatening to blow somebody's brains out, and it's the problem with the golf thing, and it's being taken out on the employees, that's a problem. I think we should just enforce it across the board. Nobody should have been given a key, but that's not, any of your fault. That was done a long time ago from what I understand. Just enforce it right across the board to everybody. I think there is homeless issues in those parks. I've seen it. And when there's a problem, when they're abusing the parks, I usually call it in and get somebody out there. So that's all I wanted to say. It should be a safe place. Shouldn't be hearing it. Somebody's brains are going to be blown out. And from what I understand, this isn't just this one time. This was something that had been worked or reported several times. And from what I heard, it was just monitor it. Oh, I think it should have been a little more than that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more? Oh, okay.
Pete Hobart. I lived in Comstock for 30 years, give or take. I mean, I'm on two sides here. I understand the golfers, and most of my information came from the news, which I don't know what all the detail was, but I will say two things here is I do agree that the Frisbee golf guys certainly have helped that park. I mean, I've been involved, at least had a reunion there every year, and it's been improved. But I also understand on the other side is that, like Jeff said, is that you got park employees that don't get paid very well, and then somebody's threatening their life. That's not cool. And I don't know all the details there too. But I mean, I guess for an understanding is that maybe we set up a certain time with the park, and that's what we're going to stick with, and not if it was one thing at one time and changed all of a sudden. And certainly work with the guys. I mean, because if there's a couple bad apples in that group, one certainly keep them out of the park. But the ones that are there to enjoy the park certainly should have the opportunity to have some kind of communication and work things out. So I guess that's my standpoint is I certainly don't want to be an employee that doesn't get paid very well, that's having their life threatened, which politics nowadays is getting ridiculous. But, if you don't like the rules, you want to threaten somebody, or that's crazy. But I also understand, the plight of these guys too, because, they have a hobby, they enjoy it. The park brings them joy. I guess a better open line of communication maybe from you guys with these guys, like they communicate a few times, but also the employee, I understand where he's coming from too. The people are wild, they're crazy, and they don't get paid very well, and they have to, deal with people who are nuts. So that's, I guess my point is that I certainly feel for these guys, and I understand where they're coming from. Maybe a better line of communication, understanding of the rules, and help these guys too. That's kind of where I'm at, is that, because they do help the park. I've gone to that park for quite a few years, and I understand that their Frisbee golf has certainly helped that park over the years. We have a family reunion every year. We've gone there for 15, 20 years now. So we very much enjoy that park, and I see the golfers out there, and I appreciate them. And I guess that's better communication is maybe the answer here. If there's some bad apples, then maybe they shouldn't be allowed if they're threatening people's life or whatever. I
Okay.
mean, that's.
Okay, thank you. Your time is up. Thank you. Are there any more comments? Okay, seeing none, we will at this point, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Just returning the mic. Thank you. Okay, at this point, we will pause our regular meeting and go into special joint meeting with the Township Board.
Welcome to the special joint meeting, Monday, July 13th, 2026. This Township Board meeting and Parks meeting is now called to order. May we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion made by Treasurer Bloomfield, supported by Trustee Pratt. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Our agenda is approved. Moving along to business, we have the Parks emergency funding and possible action. I'll hand it back over to you guys.
Okay. I would like to hand it to our Parks Director.
At our last special meeting, we were talking about different options to keep the park open and keeping everybody safe. One of the things that came up was asking, I think at that time it was Supervisor Martin, but maybe it's the whole Township Board at this point, about emergency funding to cover costs that might be associated with safety. Brett, do you have anything to add to this?
I was just going to say that I think we're past that because the emergency funding was supposed to be just for the weekend that we did. So maybe just, I don't know what the proper procedure would be at this point, but we needed the emergency funding to spend before full Township Board approval. So I guess if they could approve it now, normally, I guess you don't have to because you would approve it when the bills come through. That was the idea with the emergency funding, was just for that weekend.
So now I think we're just at a point where we're trying to figure out what to do right now, but the things that we have come up with are more long-term solutions. So it's more, what can we maybe do for 2027? So still trying to figure out for this year, we have about 8 weeks left before Labor Day. We've been utilizing a security company to kind of add that extra level of safety. They have been able to enforce our park rules when our park staff hasn't felt comfortable or safe approaching people. So it's not just sitting back and watching. From my understanding, they have been a friendly group of people. I've heard from both park staff that they feel better with them being there. And then I've also heard from park staff, but that visitors are also telling us that they appreciate the extra security there. Not wanting to spend, I don't think that the security option is great long-term, but for the meantime, like I was saying, I think this is kind of the best we have at the moment. We've tried to dial it back a little bit, just so we're not spending all that money just on security when it's not a great long-term solution. I tried last week, I believe it was, Monday and Tuesday, I had staff come in. We cleaned up the park from the night before. Then they left and the park was open to people. I was one of the people who closed both of those nights, and there were obvious issues with not having staff there and rules being broken. So I tried all three options that were kind of presented at that special board meeting. Today, I still don't know what a great solution is for right now. If it's trying to use a security company from maybe a 5 to 9 when a typical person isn't necessarily working 5 to 9. So having that extra security right there on site to make sure that things are happening. Things are still happening in our parks. We haven't had a quiet week. Just this morning, we had to trespass somebody else from Merrill Park because of what they were doing there. Thankfully, in that sense, the non-emergency did get the sheriff out quickly, so that situation was corrected, but things are still happening in our parks. I don't necessarily know what the answer is right now. I don't know if anybody else has thought of anything. I did speak to the county parks director and the city parks director, just kind of for reference, how they do things, how they handle things. It doesn't seem like we're far off from what everybody else is doing. Some of the conversations were, in the past, you could kind of expect to an extent who might be causing an issue and who might not. And this year, my experience, their experience is it could be the sweet little grandma is going to get upset about something, or it is going to be somebody that is never knowing who's going to be that person that escalates the situation. So being able to go up to somebody and enforce even an easy rule, you just never really know what you're going to get. Everybody just seems to be on edge. And it's not fair to generalize everybody like that, but it just, in our experience this year, that has been our experience. It sounds like that while we don't have as many parks, obviously, as the city or the county, I am missing a level of supervision of full-time position, part-time position, however you want to call it, at Robert Morris specifically. We did try to have a park manager, and that position that person did not work out for this year. Now I think it might be a little too late in the year to still try to get a park manager out there. So we're still trying to play catch up. We're still trying to figure out in the moment while the parks are open. I can answer any questions, but that's kind of what I figured out in the last week, and I'm just still not quite sure what the right thing to do is right now.
I think that we have two situations where you have the public in the middle of the day perhaps feels fine in an open setting like Merrill, when most people are out and about, things are happening. But then when the hours are closer to closing or dark or so on, things can change. And I think parents sense that also, and change their schedules accordingly. So there is that threat at some times in parks that needs to be addressed. When we have, like Robert Morris Park, with attendance there, park seasonal workers, it's also a little better, but I know with families, there's always a sense we're much better with someone around. But that hasn't been enough, apparently, because there have been so many instances of threats to the point where you're saying that the staff does not feel safe. So just with that, I think there's no question that we need to have more park security in some form. We need to find that funding. We've had the temporary security folks, which have been working out well, as I understand it so far. We've had our ordinance officer, who's kind of spread thin, working out okay, but still, some, I think, misunderstanding of what the ordinance rules are, not from him, but from a lot of the folks in the park. So maybe also we can communicate our ordinances much better to the public who attend our parks, so that it's very clear, what's acceptable as well. So there are different things I think that we can do, but I think that we do need to fund security, more security at this point in time, certainly through this year.
There was, I think, a little bit of miscommunication about what maybe security looks like if it was through the end of the year. End of Labor Day. Right. I was thinking maybe 5 to 9 every day, and then possibly also having security at the farmer's market. The farmer's market is kind of tricky because I don't mean this in any kind of way, but not necessarily being able to rely on the police to come when we need them and enforce the trespassing that we've issued. That kind of is the sticky situation where it's like we probably don't need security there, but if something were to happen, we don't necessarily have the backing from the sheriff's office as a great history. But talking to our farmer's market manager, it's just kind of that up in the air. Like if we knew that the police would be able to come, if they could come, then we feel like we wouldn't need security there, but not really knowing that questionable, like, are they gonna come? Are they gonna enforce what we're asking them to do? That's kind of the issue for that piece. For Robert Morris, the thought would be that 5 to 9, just because that is when not everybody is necessarily available that might be able to help the situation. Again, I don't really know what I would be supposed to be doing if something happens at Robert Morris, but at least I'm the parks director, staff supervisor, that I could do something maybe more than what a seasonal would necessarily be able to do. So I don't have a quote for you for that exact example, but it does look like it's going to be a little less, between $800 and $1,000 a day from this one company specifically. Because it is so much, I don't think that we should move forward with this. It's not necessarily a contract, but I don't think we should move forward with this until we have at least one other quote. I think that just is due diligence, but it also raises a question of, this is a time-sensitive issue. How long is it going to take to get another company to give us a quote? If they can give us a quote, how quickly can they turn around and help us out? So those are just a couple of the other issues that we're dealing with.
If I may, so we've had security for, what, it's been a week, and we stopped as Monday, right? This last Monday?
We have them here today as well, just because of who's in our room today and wanting to make sure people are okay.
And so in addition, we've still had problems, right?
Correct. They have approached people about smoking marijuana. They've talked about drinking. Dogs are still an issue, and that seems to get people a lot. People really want to have their dogs in the park, and that'll kind of set them off. And then the trespassing issues with people at Merrill mostly.
But is that through our township, or is that through our security, or that's just reported?
That's through our security company that we have at the moment.
But they're able to address it while they're there?
Correct.
Okay. So the problem is being resolved with someone there. And then what about Merrill? Are they traveling back between both Merrill and Robert Morris, or?
Right now, they're just at Robert Morris, and they're only at Merrill on Mondays for the farmer's market. And I'm sorry, I did misspeak about the quote that I just gave. So when we had them there all day for 2 officers, it was between that 800 and 1,000. Okay. I'm sorry, that was a very bad mistake. Having them from 5 to 9, I don't know what that would be, but it would be a little less than that. But it's still a lot of money that I think we need to not just sign off on that one company, but see what else is available for us.
A question, if they're under a contract and they're supposed to be there 7 nights a week or whatever, let's just say it's a cold, rainy day and we don't even have any park patrons, would they still be on contract to be paid? Or if the beach were closed because of E. coli like we've had in the past, so the park was essentially not being used, we would still have to pay them?
In the past with this company specifically, when they have, if we called off staff early because it was rainy, or we've closed at 8:30 because nobody was in the park kind of a situation, then they were not billing us for that last hour. I can't necessarily speak to a long-term if we told them we wanted them there for 4 hours and we close the park 2 hours early for storms or what have you.
If we only had, if it was raining all day and we literally had no one in the park, we would still be obligated probably to.
I'm not sure, I guess is what I'm saying. If I told them that, we're all leaving, what does that mean? That would be like I was saying, if we get quotes on these things, those would be questions that we would answer, not just a panic. We need somebody out there. What are we going to do when we're desperate, and just pay what we need to?
One other question. At one point, the insurance company told us to discontinue having lifeguards, that by having lifeguards out there, it gave the appearance of security that we really couldn't guarantee and that we would be more liable. Does the insurance company have anything to say on private security?
I don't think someone else could speak up too, but to me, those are kind of 2 separate things. We're not necessarily guaranteeing safety. It's to make sure that staff feel better about the situation. It's not a guarantee that, nothing is going to happen.
But the perception could be from the public that there's more safety out there that it's safer than if there's not security.
I'm not sure. I don't know if I can answer that. I don't know if anyone else has an opinion on it.
I thought you said earlier that you were hearing from people that they felt safer about being out there.
Yes, but say it's the same as a lifeguard. I don't know if the two.
No, I
would
just
be
wondered if the
comparable.
insurance company had weighed in on the perception of having a secure environment as opposed to if you're more liable.
Sure. No.
Where would these proposed dollars be coming from in the budget?
That's where I don't know if we would have it in our budget to, it's possible. I just don't, I couldn't say offhand if that is going to be able to take it from our budget. There would be certainly things that we want to be able to do because of it, but I also, given the quote that I do have, it's not a realistic dollar amount, so I don't really know if we're talking $10,000 or we're talking $50,000. I really can't say right now.
When you're talking about the quote, is the quote that's in front of us? Is that what you're referencing?
Yes, I got that yesterday, and
Okay.
sorry, I printed it for you too.
That's right. Based on what I'm reading, for 5 p.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week, it's about $13,000 a month. If we're looking at 2 more months, and then you add on Merrill Park, you're looking at about $30,000. You think that's safe to say? I mean, it's what I'm reading.
Sure.
If we're doing the full-time thing, that's different, but if it's 7 days a week, 5 to 9, a little over 13,000 plus 59, about $265 for each farmer's market, so roughly $30,000.
You said 30,000?
30,000-ish, yeah. That's through Labor Day. That's what you're, because Robert Morris is not staffed, correct? And then the farmer's market's done?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. Just want to understand.
Thank you
what I'm looking at here.
for that.
If that's the option we're going with, but you mentioned that 5 to 9.
Yes, with this company specifically, they have a 4-hour minimum, so that would be that 5 to 9.
Right.
I don't know if there was a different company, if they would have the same restrictions.
Okay.
Or if it'd be worse, or more, not worse.
Gotcha. So under the current, there's no specific items in the budget, so there's $30,000 left, more than that left in your budget, but by the end of the year, obviously it'll be all spent, so it would take some sort of amendment or request from the board to up that amount.
Sure.
And just while we're talking about that, so I know there was some confusion about where the money comes from, and it's all, so the township, parks, ordinance, supervisor, clerk, everybody comes from the same pot of money. So the budget line is just kind of a goal where you're spending your money from, but if any of those lines get increased, it's all from the same money. So it doesn't really matter which line it's from. It's a question of, do you want to take money from fund balance, I guess? Or like we talked about, moving money from the folks that have left recently, there's money left in their budget that can be moved around, kind of like I call it a shell game. But the budget line is just a goal. It's you got to look at your overall fund balance, and you can spend any or all of that if you'd like to. That's the short version. So anyway, it would take an amendment by the end of the year to add this 30,000, or as we're going to talk about for another ordinance officer, that's going to replace that maybe. I don't know how quickly that can be done, but that's more of a response thing rather than, I mean, the ordinance officer's not going to sit there all day.
But you're saying that the staff doesn't feel comfortable enforcing the ordinances. So if somebody's there all afternoon, they're not going to be told to put your beer away or put your cigarettes out or get rid of your dog. But between 5 and 9, they would be.
No, between 5 and 9, the security company is there.
That's what I mean.
Right,
So the patrons would be told between 5 and 9 that they couldn't do those things, but if you're there in the afternoon, nobody would be.
It's situation by situation and staff person to staff person. Some people feel more comfortable approaching situations. Some people don't feel as comfortable approaching situations.
I'm just concerned at the inconsistency of what you can do in the morning and in the afternoon.
I 100% agree. It was just trying to find a kind of a compromise with not wanting to spend a whole bunch of money on something that we shouldn't even be having to be spending money on. So the idea that 5 to 9 is typically a busier time, that's more of a time when rules could be broken. But like I had said before, a couple of the instances that I was there for, there were maybe 5 people in the park and things were happening. So it's not to say that things are fine earlier in the day, but just trying to figure out the best time, the best use of our money to do the best we can. But no, 5 to 9 is not necessarily the solution either.
Okay, shall we move on to the ordinance official discussion?
unless anyone has anything else to say about this. Yes?
Yeah, I'd just like to ask possibly if Supervisor Martin and any of the township board members have any thoughts on what they've heard thus far, or any recommendations.
My recommendation was going to be in this ordinance official on the next part, and then we could also ask Dakota, while we're all here as with the township board and the parks, to he could maybe put some perspective to how many calls for service that he had to do township wide, and then how many were facilitated to parks, and then just kind of put that snapshot picture together. And then I think if we want to move along into this ordinance official discussion, we can. And I think that we may find for the parks that this might be a little bit more financially doable, as well as there could be interest from the township board. If somebody's qualified for the job position, they'd likely be seeking full-time employment, and to put the full burden on the Parks Department for a full-time, perhaps maybe you guys could utilize that individual part-time, and then in certain situations, Dakota might not want to go by himself somewhere, so they could help one another. And so if there's a situation in the parks that were escalated and that individual needed help from Dakota, so we could kind of have that conversation of a co-sharing, an ordinance official. They'd come in, they'd take an oath, they'd have a job at the township, but then how we'd ask Brett as far as like how the funds are allocated, or how we go about that to cost share that individual. I think an hourly employee might suit, the numbers a little bit better. And if you guys would be okay, I could have Dakota come up to the podium. Dakota, if you'd come up. If you could just touch base on the number of requests that you got and how many were allocated to parks, and kind of the conundrum that put you in for your job.
Yeah, so last month I had 63 cases, and 32 of them were at the parks, both Robert Morris, Celery, and Mill Street. So that ate up a lot of my time. It was a lot of me trying to juggle doing what I'm getting paid for, and then trying to hammer down on these complaints of getting at the parks on top of that. And they were so random when they were coming in, and a lot of it was being reactionary to the issue happening. So quite a few of them I got there after the person already had the problem and decided to leave and then get threatening towards staff. So it was very reactionary sometimes to those issues. I'm going to go into the ordinance officer role.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So I got handouts, a couple of them. Read too much into the Axon one yet. That is a little bit later. But looking at like hiring another ordinance officer, who that should fall under, like if it falls underneath parks or the ordinance department, I'm already set up to have 2 people. It does not make sense for the parks department to try to create their own and then spend all this money to do so. When again, I'm already equipped to have 2 people for the most part. So in front of you is just kind of my idea of how hiring the ordinance officer would go. It's definitely not a quick thing. In the past, it has been a quick thing, and then we end up getting into trouble down the road years later, and then I got to deal with that trouble. And I'm trying to make that not happen. I have talked with other ordinance officers, both in this county and in other counties, as well as had conversations with our attorney who does this kind of job. I'm just seeing like, how is it actually that hard to hire somebody who is qualified to do the job? And yes, it is hard to find somebody who's qualified right now. Everybody is struggling. It's not just Kalamazoo County. So the second page kind of goes over what my hiring process would look like. Obviously, this is not just a me decision. This would be a board decision, but I'm just trying to make some nice flow. That way, we have kind of a plan that we can follow. So like the first step would be we put the job out there. People would apply for them. I'd reach out to them. The biggest thing that I was a little upset about when I got a job was how much I was not told that my job was. And I had to find out a lovely, fun way of what my job actually entailed. So we're a little bit more upfront and honest with them because there is a cost that does come to equipping one of these people. So like not having them quit within 2 months would be nice. So being upfront and honest with them and kind of explain what step 2 is, which is a written exam. Issues we had in the past with other ordinance officers was they did not understand federal, local, or state law or our local ordinances. So today I'm picking up messes from 2 ordinance officers ago who have misquoted our ordinances, and it makes a little bit of a problem for me to do the enforcement. So having a small little exam happen, people who have a passing grade can then move forward to a panel interview, which is not out of the ordinary. For when you do hire people here, I don't know what that panel would look like. I would assume that I'd sit in on it because it's ordinance enforcement. But then from there, we all see who we want to hire or who we would recommend and bring that to the township board, and the township board makes a decision if they want to follow what the panel says or group says or not. Any questions on this portion? Good, I like it when there's no questions. That means that people like what I'm saying. Or I need to find a new job, either one. So next one is the biggest one that I kind of had an issue with when I began here was a probationary period. There just wasn't one. That was very frustrating. Not that I didn't know how to do the job. I just didn't know Comstock. I didn't know the way that Comstock did things. I didn't like that there wasn't much training cohesion between myself and the other ordinance officer. We worked well together. Both of us are firefighters. Like, we always get along. But as far as like the expectations of being able to do a job was a little weird, especially when that person also lacked a lot of the education needed for the job. Last thing I want to do is do like what we do in EMS, is just kick a brand new EMT out into the wild and see if they fly. And usually they don't fly. I'd rather nurture them a little bit, make sure that they're nice and comfortable, make sure that we're enforcing things that are following law and just not things that we're making up, and that they can be safe on their own. So underneath this probation list are things that they would all have to complete before I would say, yes, I feel comfortable with them being on their own, both for township safety, as far as liability goes, and then their safety, and then my safety, because I don't want them to do something dangerous that gets me hurt, even though I call that workman's comp and a fee vacation. People are still laughing. I still got jokes. Any question on this on the probationary period? I would assume it'd take about a month or 2 to do. It would honestly depend when we hire somebody. If you hire somebody when there's snow on the ground, this is not going to be a quick process. When we hire somebody when there's no snow on the ground, things go a little bit faster. Also, things would go faster if the AC would work in the courthouse. But this is what I have. These are big items that really do matter, especially with what they would have to be dealing with on almost a daily basis. Again, both for everybody's safety and township liability. Any questions? All right. PMIs is public maintenance inspections. That's what we do with CABA. I pretended like I heard that question. So next one is the equipment. This is kind of what I carry, what I found not only works for me, but makes more practical sense. Again, we're usually out there all alone by ourselves. It gets lonely. So having the appropriate stuff to do our job. I also like looking professional as much as I can. I know some people have said before in the past, I don't because my shirt's untucked, because I do a lot of other things. Last 2 times I was burning on a pile and I was really wet with sweat. And I did not want to tuck in my shirt. My shirt's tucked in now. So these are just the minimum that I would have for somebody to have with them, or what they would be issued. I like using the issued term because it's not their personal item. They would have to return it. So like, I like the idea that them having a tourniquet with them. Tourniquets save lives. I swear up and down by them. They're amazing. Then them having a personal first aid kit just in case. Business cards, they should always have business cards with them and on them. Not only can you write notes on them, but you can also identify that you're also a township employee. It's been a handful of times now that even though I drive a vehicle that says Township, Charlotte Township, Comstock, I'm wearing this, and they still doubt who I am for whatever reason. So just being able to provide one more thing to show that I am indeed employed by a township. Especially like when I try to buy things, people are like, oh, are you really with a township? It's like, yes, I am actually with a township of Comstock. A notepad, pen, both things that should be standard on somebody at all times. That was drilled into me back in my old Army days, and I still follow that. Flashlight, needle-resistant gloves. We do pick up a lot of needles. Once May hit, I was filling up a container every other week. It has slowed down a little bit for me because I've been busy doing other things, so we do pick up a lot of needles. They get a laptop, a body cam, which is really important because people like to say that things are happening when they don't, and we record all of our interactions. Badge, that's one of the things we carry to help identify ourselves. Body armor, this is where it gets kind of expensive because we've had a lot of threats in the last year. One of them involved me having to jump a fence because cops said I pulled their guns, and I don't like getting extra holes in me. That gets a little bit more expensive when you buy body armor. You're buying it almost custom to the person. So again, trying to hire somebody who wants to be here a long time is great because we can hire somebody who's like 120 pounds, buy them armor, then they quit. The next person we hire is 6'5", 250 pounds, and that's not going to fit them. So try and find somebody who will want to be here, and that's the reason for the whole testing, is to make sure that we're hiring the appropriate person. Then clothing, I said polo. I like polos. I think they look more professional than what we were wearing. Makes us look a lot less tactical, but then having ordinance officer on it. Pants, traffic vest, and citation holder. Again, all these come at a cost. I have been doing a little bit of purchasing here and there for a second person when I find deals, because I like deals. I like saving money when I can. I've just always planned on having a second person at some point. And then the vehicles, right? We have a second vehicle that we've been using for ordinance enforcement in the past. That is vehicle number 18. And then just outfitting it so we are a little bit more visible. I should say back on equipment. Anybody have any questions on equipment? No. Yes.
On the body cam, is there an audio to that as well?
Yes, so what's nice is my body cam, that I don't have on right now because I'm being recorded everywhere else. It is always on, but it's never activated until I need it. That way, if you and I are having a cordial conversation and then you say something along the lines of, I want to shoot you, I can activate the body cam and it replays that last 30 seconds. So it's always on a 30-second time loop. So they're always on, but never recording until I hit that button.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I got a question back here, if you want. Said they run into people with drug issues.
I'm sorry. No questions from the boards?
Dakota, I had one question. With regards to the information that you've taken, citations or what have you, when you do a write-up, are those retained within the township? Are those also available for the parks so that people are knowledgeable of an ongoing situation that maybe escalates, or is it more of a one-on-one kind of thing?
As far as like an incident report?
Yeah, like an incident report, but how is it documented? Where do you keep that as well with the body camera?
Yeah,
I mean, is there a law against someone understanding that they're being recorded or not?
No, so they are in public. You can record anybody in public, even without their permission. You don't need it. There are a few exceptions to that, but it has to do with more criminal things, like more CSC things, which we don't do. Body cam footage gets retained for 30 days unless if it is a court case, and I got to retain that until the court case is done. That's not a law that we have to follow because we're not a law enforcement agency. It is a policy that we adopted. The last prior board did. So it's only retained for 30 days and then it's gone. Prior to that, we were retaining everything. When I came here, I had over 6,000 videos, and we do pay for the amount of data that we store, which was a lot of money. So I talked to the old superintendent, figured out what our policy was. Policy was 30 days, as state law says, unless it's a court case. And we were able to purge a lot of that, which was able to free up a lot of space and then save me money. As far as incident reports go, that's a tricky one right now. BSA is not wanting to save my reports that I type in. It's a hit or miss if they do. I do have a running Excel spreadsheet that kind of breaks down what's going on, but stuff not detailed. That's something that I'll be getting into a little bit later with this form of what I was kind of looking at. I just running into a lot of issues right now for the last year with both our body cams and the way that we've been recording things, and both on paper and in computer. I did look at trying to use different systems to record our instances and log them. I went to a few different companies that everybody else in this county uses, and what my other county did when I worked down there, and it is a lot of money. The cheapest one I found was about $35,000 a year for their reporting system, and it is based off of your population, not how many cases you have. That just seemed like a lot of money, and I'm still trying to figure out a system that will work for us to record these instances that happen. Katie records all of them for the parks. I'm a lot less worried about that. That's all I have for that.
Dakota, I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned that you've been purchasing some of this equipment. Do you know how much it's going to cost to finish outfitting another ordinance officer?
Yeah, a little bit. So we would be looking, depends when deals happen. So like armor is a really expensive one. So when it's on sale, it can be sub $700. When it's not on sale, we're pushing more like $1,200 to $1,500. So I would assume maybe $2,000 at most. It's really going to depend on when I can hit deals and whatnot. So especially, for example, with Streamlight, it's a flashlight company. They have a lifetime warranty, even when they have closeout deals and their flashlights are being discontinued. If they break, they replace it with their next model. So I can get their lights pretty cheap, and then if they break, it's still covered, and we get a new flashlight. Yeah, but like needle-resistant gloves, we go through those pretty quickly. There's a lot of needles. And I also use those to pick up trash too, because you don't know what's going to be in those tents and other things, which we had to go back again on Rose Street to go do. Any other questions? Did I answer your question? It was about $2,000.
I have a question for you. Okay, looking at some of the items that you need to do for your job. You have down here, one, demonstrate how to administer Narcan.
Yes.
So in your job, you're not just coming upon infractions and, having to deal with that. You're also there as a resource to help in those situations, such as if you come up on someone who's overdosed?
Yeah, so I do a lot of work with the homeless. There's always that risk. It's also for us as well. Again, I'm around drugs enough that it'd be a very unfortunate thing if I was to inhale a powder and then my buddy Joe just looks at me, drops as a drop to the ground, and then he just checks my wallet for money and then calls 911. But it'd be great, like, if they know how to use Narcan. It's a very useful tool. At the layperson level, there isn't contraindication or risk for using Narcan. That's more at the EMS level that we see those contraindications. It's a very simple training. It's also something that I think everybody should know how to do.
You could come upon emergencies and know what to do in that case, as well as monitoring what's going on. Or if you see an infraction, for example, do you go through a warning process before ticketing someone?
It is a case-by-case basis, right? Okay. So if I'm not going to a house that I had to get a search warrant for, odds are you're not getting a warning from me because it's bad enough. If I find you cooking drugs, you're not getting a warning from me, you're going to get tickets. For what happened the last few Thursdays, nobody got a ticket, they only got warnings. So it's really a case-by-case basis. It just depends on how cooperative you want to be with me. If I think that you're going to comply further down the road, like if I go to your house and say, hey, you got 14 days to pick up the litter off of your yard, and you tell me to go kick rocks, that you're not going to do it, you're going to get a ticket. Because I'm not going to wait 14 days. You've made it very clear to me that you're not going to listen. So it's a case-by-case basis. Yes.
Just shoot a question concerning the homeless population that you work a lot with.
Yes.
It's increasing around the state, country.
Yes.
What would you say the homeless population is in Comstock right now?
We are between 60 and 80. We're getting pretty high right now. Last year we were at the highest, we were like 30. We're getting pretty high. Yeah, like downtown's getting full. It's getting pushed out this way. I'm at the point now where I know where a lot of them are, and they're hiding and they're being quiet, which is great. Because if I go to enforce something and they just move out into the public and it causes more problems. Yeah, it's definitely like a weekly thing working with the homeless, and I don't have a good solution for it, other than not getting stabbed.
And would you say most of the homeless here in Comstock are outside, formally outside from our district, our township?
Yeah, so I have my regulars that are from Comstock, and they're pretty good. There's only like a handful of them that really cause any problems for me. Most of them are pretty understanding, very nice to talk to. I've had more than one conversation sitting on the sitting over the bridge here, talking with them, hearing about their personal life and their dating life and things like that. I could really write a book. I'd make a lot of money. But most of them are not bad people. They're just falling on hard times and just need somebody to understand. And there's others who get mad because I won't let them cook meth in the park, and then they try to stab me. My goal is always to leave with the same amount of holes I came here with.
Dakota, what's your policy when that escalates in an incident like that?
It really depends on the person. The Parks is familiar with a guy named Bundy. He is a little strange. There's been more once that he gets mad at me and say that he'll pick up the last time was he picked up a brick and said that he was going to smash my head in with a brick. And I said, Bundy, go sit down. You're not going to do that. And you go, okay. So it really depends on the person. Nick, who has camped out here wanting to stab me, I 100% believe him when he says that he is going to stab me. even though I've sat and listened to his stories, because I'm just not nice of a guy. When I see him, I try and call county and get them out here. Lately, after my last rant, they've been showing up. But that's usually what I do with them. I can usually de-escalate most things. And being in like the public service field for like the last 12 years, I've gotten really good to talk myself out of situations. Working on an ambulance, you don't have a cop with you, and people can get very, very mean very quickly.
Are there any other questions from the boards for Dakota?
I have one more page, and then I'll move on to, yeah. I was more or less asking if we had questions on equipment, and then we kind of went over. So vehicles, again, we have that spare vehicle, 18, just things that would be in it or on it, that would be nice. We do have a laptop mount for 18. I believe it is in Richard's garage somewhere, because it was taken out because we only had one of us, and people don't like driving with it. It's hard to have two people in there. But we can easily install that back in. Traffic vests are a big one. I would eventually like to have lights on the vehicle. The amount of times I've almost been hit on the side of the road is insane. Just happened last week, so much so that one of the reasons I asked for a budget adjustment was somebody almost took off my door on East Michigan and almost took me with it. And I'm getting kind of tired of that. Comstock here, we have a history of our vehicles getting hit, and I would like to not be part of that. And it's a basic blowout kit, too. It's a much more in-depth first aid kit for more trauma than the ANSI first aid kit, which is already in there, should be already in there if it didn't get removed. Nitrile gloves, ruler to measure grass, because that's still a complaint that I get a lot of, is people's tall grass. The litter grabbers, little hand thingies that don't have to bend over, because my scoliosis doesn't like bending over anymore. Trash bags, shop container. I believe 18 still has one if I didn't take it. Basic forcible entry tools, so like if we got to demo something, they're great to use. It saves us from having to call the company out. Jumper cables, then your citation booklets, both single citation, so if I'm writing one infraction compared to a multi-citation, which is where I'm writing up to 3. And then the parking ticket booklet as well. Now, each citation booklet is about $100 a pop. And if I wanted to, at the height of, well, last year in May, I wrote 16 tickets, and each book holds 12. So I burned through over $100 in 1 month, just in booklets. The parking ticket ones are slightly a bit less, but it's 75, but we have a legit 1,000 books of parking tickets, so we have sat on those forever. So that's all I have for that. So the biggest one is the body cam. So right now we use Axon, which at the time of buying Axon body cams, they were the only ones that were in the business. That's what the sheet is the Axon list. They were the only ones that were in the business of really doing body cams outside of buying ones on Amazon, which we were using previously. The issue is we ourselves would have to maintain that footage. That just takes up a lot of space on the computer. That's why they went with Axon. Axon is... It is like going to the way we are using it, it's like going to a buffet and only getting a bowl of mac and cheese. It is a very nice company when you use all of the features that go along with it. It is a lot of money if you're just using the one feature, which is what we're doing, which is the body cam and then storing the body cam footage. It is very expensive. A lot of law enforcement agencies are going away from Axon due to issues with their cameras and then just the cost of them. The Axon body cam lasts for about 2 years before they need to get replaced or worked on or refurb. And we are beyond that 2-year mark. We're into year 3 now with them. And last year I started to have issues where they would phantom record, so it would show it was recording on its own. Like I'd just be driving and it'd activate and act like it's recording when it wasn't. And I can't deactivate it because it was never activated, but believes that it was activated, and I can't override it to activate it for something. So I have to come back here, put it on the base station, and then restart it, which is frustrating, because I got to take time out of my time to come back here and do that. We're running into issues of it would record over itself, like it would just loop. I had one house, I was there for a couple hours cleaning up the property, and it kept looping the first 30 seconds for that whole hour or so that I was out there, which did not do me any good. When it gets a little bit hotter, it doesn't like to record sound. And then just the video quality is terrible. Granted, it is only for up-close encounters and more or less to record voice, but I do use it for enforcement, and sometimes from a distance it's really hard to tell what I'm looking at. That's why I did go out and go purchase a digital camera to get those much more cleaner shots, but I'm not going to be carrying around a Canon camera with me everywhere that I go. So for the 60-month thing, it cost us over $6,500 to use. I don't think we should do that again. Our 60 months is up soon, so I will be looking again at going somewhere else. I have reached out to quite a few other people who've had these issues, and I have began the search market back in January. So I am looking at going somewhere else, but it's just costs to keep in mind if parks wanted to hire their own on themselves without going to the township. It's going to cost a pretty penny. Questions for everything or anything that I didn't cover? I'm salary, so you can keep me here all night long.
Okay, thank you, Dakota. No more questions.
All right.
Thank you.
So I think one thing that we'd want to be cognizant of is, depending on the time of the year when you would hire somebody, their medical benefits, this cost associated with that from the township. If they don't have a family, you're looking somewhere around $2,500. If it's a family, it would be prorated at $5,000. So even if we do hire that individual and it doesn't work out, we've still paid into that. So that would be one cost that we would want to be cognizant of. And I believe at one point there was an advertisement, maybe a couple years ago, around maybe $22 an hour for an ordinance official. There were some people that felt like they were more than qualified, but that pay didn't work out for them. So I think that would be a discussion that we'd want to look at. You know, my guess is somewhere between $22 and $25 an hour if you wanted to find right off the bat a good qualified candidate. I think you're likely going to get what you pay for. So I think the panel would be a good idea. You could have somebody, whether it's the parks director in your position, are you a personnel director essentially? So I'd be glad to be in it. Katie, Dakota, and then perhaps if any other board members, and then that way we have continuity between the board and the parks board. We could get that live and posted and get to work on that right away. I just think that would be more financially feasible to do than to continue paying private security. So I'd be glad to help in the postings and help do that. Trustee Amos, do you have anything?
No, I would volunteer to help, to be on the board, whatever, and to do whatever I could.
Trustee Pratt?
Just a quick, thank you. Just a quick question, a follow-up on the cam recorder situation. Is there anyone besides the ordinance officer working with the park system that also has a cam recorder and uses it daily in the work?
No, we've talked about maybe getting like an Amazon one for specifically the guard shack, but we haven't done that yet.
Okay. I think that would be something, whether it's from your budget or if the township could help, that would be something that we might, as a board, or boards want to discuss, just to monitor and to identify the culprits that are truly a problem. And anyway, I think that would be something to explore. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Pratt.
I guess I would like to see us have more discussion on who's paying for what and how, like the vehicle. I would think that to outfit another ordinance officer, that the township would pick that up, because you would only be seasonal, where we would be using, if we had a full-time ordinance officer after you are closed in the parks or you lesser hours, that the township would pick that person up. And I kind of disagree with the fact that we don't necessarily need 2 ordinance officers in the wintertime, because with all the foliage gone, you can see a lot more of what's out there. So I'm not gung-ho on just going back to 1 ordinance officer if we can afford it in the fall. Thank you.
So I would look to Brett to talk about some of the funds, and although they're coming out of the same bucket, how would that work? And I would support Treasurer Bloomfield in that in your guys' off-season, we could utilize that individual to help assist Dakota and get prepared for spring, and maybe cover some of the more fixed costs associated with that individual and the equipment, and then maybe, yeah, looking for ideas. What are your thoughts, Brett?
Oops, I thought I'd turn that on. So, yes, as you mentioned, it all comes from the same pot of money, which I know is weird because we have our own board, but we don't have a millage. So it's all the general township millage. It just gets allocated to different buckets, but it's essentially the township board would approve it either way, whichever line it comes from. More of what you'd have to decide is how much time would be allocated to the parks and how much time would be allocated to general ordinance business, regardless of where the money came from. It can come from any line, if that makes sense. But based on the conversation I had with you the other day and some of the things that you were trying to do with the different positions that have left. So right off the top, the severance that was paid to the superintendent, that's just coming out of carryover. So that goes on an unusual and frequent items line. So I'm taking this out of the equation for right now. So if you reallocate some of the planning and zoning person's salary that was left to McKenna, and then the finance director is moving, some of that's moving to treasurer for the deputy treasurer, and then my residual part-time stuff, you've got a lot of money left there. The superintendent line moving to supervisor for a couple of things, and then adding a second ordinance officer. This is for the rest of this year, I'm sorry. I only calculated for the rest of this year because we haven't started talking about the budget for next year. All of this can be worked in for next year's budget, but so if you move those, take what you had and move them there, you're gonna have about $88,000 left for, I didn't factor in any of the equipment yet because I didn't know about that, the $2,000 and then whatever the body cam is. And then that other part-time person, I didn't figure that in, that we kind of talked about. So moving what's left from one line and moving it to another line, again, it's all the same money, but the budget is affected to the positive, minus the severance, $88,000. So you're kind of, you have that to play with for some other, and then I figured in an estimate for the new ordinance officer. You could be, the insurance is impossible to determine because it's based on age and how many family members you have, so we won't know that until they're hired. HSA, as you said, is $2,500 for single and $5,000 for family. So I just ballparked the insurance part, but again, we won't know. It's gonna depend on the age and how many family members they have, if any. So that's kind of the starting point, and I can fill in the exact numbers and get something more professional than my spreadsheet that I have right now and present it to you, but that's kind of what you're looking at. 88,000 to the good, but not really, because you've got the 400+ thousand that was paid out. But if you can move those lines and actually only affect the fund balance 239,000 to the negative at the end of the year, which is still puts you, I think, above the 20% goal, just because of how costs are handled throughout the year. We generally put more into fund balance each year. But again, that's just projected as of right now. I don't know if that helps or not.
It does, thank you. I would say in comparison to if you just use $25 an hour for 20 hours at the park, like, do you think, and if that person kind of had an offset schedule with Dakota, so maybe if the parks in the summer are busy later, that person starts their workday at a different time than Dakota would, and so they can cover those peak times at the park, looking at what you were looking at, would 20 hours, would that make a difference for you? I mean, it would be better than nothing, right? It'd be 20 hours of a person, but would that be enough?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I was thinking that, disagreeing. It just seems like the evenings and the weekends are the busier times, and when it doesn't feel like if you do need to call somebody, no one's necessarily going to answer. So wanting an ordinance officer type of a person to be available more in the evenings and the weekends seems better than not. So if you're talking 20 hours a week, I just don't know. And then, you know, the ordinance officer, we're not just talking about that they would be covering Robert Morris specifically, but we want them to be checking out all of our parks.
And they should be, in the instance that we have a growing homeless or unhoused population, that ordinance officer should be trained to be a walking Rolodex. If they encounter somebody that needs something, they should be able to point them to resources, and that's what we're working on with the homeless committee, is to be able to have the information for them when they do encounter somebody that needs help, instead of just giving them a ticket or kicking them out of the park. And then we're putting together a policy of how they would conduct themselves, and then a policy of how things would be escalated. And so if it's a trespass and it's, you know, the final penalty is a misdemeanor penalty, that's not the goal of the ordinance. We would have some processes and procedures to work through before it would get to that point. So, and then I think that, you know, depending on the situation and how, if things are pretty well quiet at the park, there's a lot of things in the township that, so I don't know how that would work, you know, busier weeks than others. I don't know if we get caught up, and if the money's coming from the same bucket, are we just essentially hiring another ordinance officer? They help at parks, but, you know, if we were doing tick for tack to trace the money to who it's allocated from, whether it's from parks or the board, if things were pretty quiet at the park, that person could be being productive helping Dakota with something. So I don't know how, you know, if you would do we get too caught up in that part of tracking it and allocating money from board to board, or how does that work, Brett?
I think what you just said is correct. It would just be a second township ordinance officer, and then somehow it would have to be in their job description. You could work with Dakota, work with Katie, how and when they would respond to the parks. I guess maybe they would have a schedule where they hit them all, but then I know there's a lot of times where they need to call someone and Dakota's not only available, so maybe that person would be available for calls. I think that would have to be worked out with the three of you. But, what I was thinking, it would just be a second township ordinance officer who would spend times at the park as decided by you.
Yeah, that seems a little bit more simple. But then, instead of just having one ordinance officer township-wide, we could have two with at least a good allocation during peak season that person's expected to make their rounds at the parks. And maybe if we didn't limit it to them to just the parks, like they could make their rounds, if all is well, then go find something to do to be productive.
I think the main, I don't want to speak for Katie, but I think the main thing is just being available when needed. Right.
Yeah, and then maybe their schedule, maybe in the interviews, finding somebody that would be interested to work on the weekend for the park and in the evenings. And I think by design, I think that could, for that second individual's job, accommodate the parks a little better. Anything from our Board of Trustees? Treasurer Bloomfield? Trustee Pratt? Trustee Amos? Anything from the parks? Anyone got a quick calculator handy? You know, if you kind of threw around $25 an hour and you could get a pretty quick comparison to that private security quote on, you know, I know that you were talking $30,000, but would this help quite a bit?
Well, I think the downfall with that is just how long is it going to take to hire an ordinance officer and go through all this. So I think thank you so much for a long-term solution for next year, but I just don't know if that really fixes tomorrow.
Yeah, we could get to work tomorrow, though.
Well, yes.
Yeah, I understand.
Sure.
Maybe it's a temporary solution where we continue on with the security to a certain extent, figure out how long that might take to get someone in here. The other thing I wanted to question is that anyone on like an EMT team or firefighters, I mean, do those type of individuals have any interest in potentially spending some time in our parks too? They seem like they're kind of a related field in a sense. For the short term, sorry, not for long term. I don't know.
So basically, if on this we could, you know, our board could make a motion to make a job posting, and that could be our action that we could take. It sounds like Brett identified that there could be, you know, some money in the budget that would do that, and we could, I don't know if our board would be interested now to appoint the panel. That way we could get the posting and then can start conducting interviews and get to work on that. I'd be looking for a motion. Treasurer Bloomfield?
And this is full-time, correct?
Yeah, I think if you made the motion for the full-time ordinance official and made it for like a job posting, and then within that maybe did the panel as well as a one motion with for a job posting and for a full-time position with myself, Dakota, and Katie. So it'd be both personnel directors and the ordinance official. And if any other board members feel inclined to want to join, I think the more people that we involve in a committee, the more schedules we have to try to accommodate in order to get something going quickly. So I would be in favor of either way.
I think there probably ought to be two motions.
Okay, that'd be fine. And then maybe with that motion, for the panel, we could have discussion whether we would want to extend it further than 3 individuals.
I move that the Township Board move forward with posting and hiring another full-time ordinance officer.
Support.
Motion made by Treasurer Bloomfield, supported by Trustee Amos. Any board discussion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Treasurer Bloomfield? Yes. Trustee Pratt?
Yes.
Trustee Amos?
Yes.
Supervisor Martin? Yes. Motion passes.
Okay, second motion. I move that we create a panel to write the job description and hire and post for the ordinance officer full-time position.
Motion made by Treasurer Bloomfield, supported by Trustee Amos. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. So we will get to work on that right away. And do you guys have any questions for us? What's that?
Do you want to pick your panel now? I think you should, so you can move forward.
Oh, I didn't realize you didn't have that in your motion.
Because I wasn't sure.
We're going to amend our motion.
First you wanted you three, and then Jody said he'd do it, and I didn't know if you wanted another Parks Board member or not.
I think if we really want to get this done, I think less people's better. Then we don't have to accommodate so many schedules. Would you guys be fine with Katie being on the panel? Board, would you be fine with me being on the panel along with Dakota? Then there'd be three of us?
I'll amend it.
Okay, we're going to amend our motion.
Sorry, everybody. Okay, I'm going to amend that motion for the panel to include the Parks Director, the Township Supervisor, and our Ordinance Officer, Dakota, for the panel.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. And then moving along to general joint board member discussion.
Can I just, Chair, can I answer one question? Teresa? So you asked about the cost. It looks like for full-time salary, payroll taxes, insurance, benefits, it's all included, it's going to be 70,000 or so. So half of that, so like about 35,000 for the rest of this year, which is well within what we've got to move around. If they're hired today, of course, it's not going to be right now, so that goes down as the year goes along.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question. Do you have a timeline that you would like to have this posting ready or let?
Being that I think I can get Katie and Dakota in the same room tomorrow, perhaps we
Okay.
could work on the job description and start getting that posted. So that part we can get done this week. And then, of course, it's going to be waiting on candidates to start trickling in. And perhaps we could put the posting on Indeed, and then that way it can get out there a little faster. Thank you. So in the general joint board members discussion, we could also address the public comment from the July 6th Township Board meeting where there was an individual that just wanted some clarity on if the group was formally trespassed or how that works. And I don't know if Parks put anything as far as in a statement yet or in writing or how we could go about it, addressing that formally to them.
Katie, would you like to comment on that?
So this is where I sent an email with the board packet, the 3 questions that I read, or I watched the board meeting. I got the couple of questions from the speaker, and then I kind of gave you guys an answer and then a little bit of an explanation on why that was the answer. I just didn't know if that's what you actually want me to say or not, or if anybody else had anything to add to it or how you'd like me to proceed.
And then I guess for Parks, I would ask, obviously that would be Katie, Dakota, and it might not get an answer today, but is it to the point where it's a formal decision, or is there any synergy to be able to work together with the other party to see if there could come to some common understanding? But I don't know if all those remedies were exhausted and it's to the point where it's at, but
Yeah, I think that What Katie has put together is a start to that discussion, and that's what your agenda item is. It's addressing comments, but it's also a statement of her understanding of how it is. And if we want to openly discuss that, we should.
I'd be happy to. I just didn't want to say it without you knowing what it was first. I'm just reading it from my phone because I forgot to print this piece out. So from watching the Township Board meeting on July 6th, the first question I heard was, can the board clarify if league is still welcome to organize the league's volunteer maintenance and other activities? If a decision has not been made, when will it be made? The decision has been made. The Disc Golf League as a group was trespassed from Robert Morris Park. The individuals are still allowed at the park. If volunteer work is being done in the parks, it needs to be organized and led by this department. Question 2 was, why is this the decision? Park rules are being violated. The league's managers' decisions that led to threats against park staff and destruction of property. Question 3 was the league given an opportunity to discuss any concerns? Yes, I communicated with Larry over emails and in person. I thought we were going to discuss a special request to stay after closing, but Larry never followed up with that and went to Facebook to complain. Before the complaint on Facebook, we could have discussed policy and special requests, explained revoking his key and addressing use of volunteers working on the disc golf course. Those were the 3 questions that I heard from the meeting.
Okay.
And I'm just curious, as far as the trespass for the group, was that delivered to them in writing, or how does that work as far as from like a legal standpoint of what process did we go through for that?
I apologize, I do not remember exactly. I forget, Dakota told me and I apologize. I don't remember if he did send them a letter, he didn't send them a letter. I'm sorry, Dakota.
Do we have a mic?
You can have the mic.
For the recording, obviously. Everyone wants to hear my voice. Yes, so because it is a league, it has to be when they show up again. When they show up, they be told that they're not allowed to gather on the property. So it'll be when they show up.
So it's a verbal?
Correct. Yep, because it is a group. Yep. No tickets have been written. I could have. There could have been over $9,600 worth of tickets I could have written, but no tickets were written. Not a single one. And if people don't believe that, you can go on mycourts.gov and type in people's names, and it'll tell you whether or not they have a court date, which would follow a civil citation ticket. Which is what all I can write is a civil citation ticket.
And then that verbal trespass would then be in front of the sheriff's department, so they would have that?
So, no, it is an entity. So if they decide to continue to be there, then the group itself would be issued a citation. So it would be the league owner. He'd be responsible for it. So then we just go after the league itself. Because the individuals themselves are not trespassed. So if John Doe, the disc golfer who's part of cases, wanted to come on his own, cool, that's fine. The league together comes there, that's not okay. Not to even get into running a small business out of the park, which is, zoning would have a problem with that too. But yeah, just this in general, it's the group's not allowed. If they show up, they be given that warning and then be told that they can't assemble.
Is that for 1 year?
So we can have it as long as they want it. My plan has always been until the end of the year, until January 1st, 2027. And then if the league owner wanted to come down, have a sit-down meeting with myself and Katie and whoever else wants to be there from the township or Parks Board and see if he understands why this has happened. And if he would like to agree to follow our rules, then great. If not, then they just won't be allowed back. And this is not the only area this is not the only township or private park that this group has had problems at. Unfortunately, it's been at a few others. So this is not out of the norm for anything. This is nothing new. This has happened before in the past.
Thank you.
Yep. You want me to stay up here for the questions, or? Because I can keep walking back and forth and get in my steps.
Thank you.
Would it be, you mentioned at the end of the year, would it be possible, just hearing all this, and I'm trying to think of how do we get back, or it's possible to get back to a more norm or a more position that both the township and this league were, I take it, before the start of the season?
Yeah, so I don't know what happened before the beginning, before I was asked to come in. It was not just first group. There's a lot of things that were going on. But it literally just be him having to sit down with myself and Katie and figure out what rules we're enforcing, why they're enforcing it, if they would agree to follow those rules. We just need them to agree that, yes, they'll follow these rules.
As I heard discussion, your presentations, and speakers from the league, I can see where things went south pretty quickly. But I've got the impression that before the season there were really no big issues.
There was not enforcement being done. Before I went up there for enforcement, before the beginning of this year, parks didn't really hear any big complaints that were going on. Even last year, I was not up at the parks last year outside of doing a burn. There's no complaints, right, Kate? Like, there's no big issues that were really happening last year that you know of?
I went through all of the minutes from 2025, and there were, in the director's report, there were 3 times that the Disc Golf League was mentioned. Once was that they were fixing a retaining wall, and that the park had contributed the material, but the group had done the retaining wall. There was a mention in one director's report that the league was starting, and then there was a mention about that Larry LeBond had sold approximately 50 passes or something like that, but there was never a mention of any problems.
So there hasn't been issues to the past. Other ordinance officers, from what I can tell, haven't really been up there. That wasn't really a thing. So I really don't know past history of the park. I can only speak to why I was called up there and what was going on and what I had to deal with.
Okay. And so just to end on it, for me, Jim, I would like to encourage something in the protocol before the year's end to discuss the entirety of the issue. I think, again, things went south for whatever reasons. I did not hear that I can recall that the culprits in some of the more serious issues that I heard threats and whatnot, I did not hear definitely that this was due to participants or members of the league. So again, I would hope to encourage discussion before the end of the year and try to get back to a more normative state.
So I was on Facebook. I did see those threats, and I was able to match those to the people I've seen check in at a table or at the little area with the disc golf manager. So I was able to put faces to names. That's why we went that route. Yep. So I was aware of who it was. There was enough of them. It was over 40 in one day, and I said, that's enough. That's insane. I'm going to stop looking, and this is not okay. There's different people there every week, so just out of the abundance of caution, the group's just not allowed. But if John Doe themselves want to come, or John Doe and Jane Doe want to come, that's fine. It's just that league itself can't be there. And again, running business out of the park is something else too.
I would just like to say that I would support Bob Pratt's, not a motion or anything like that, but I mean, to possibly have some discussion with with Larry LeBond and some of the members and see if there was any way of working things out. I would like to see that happen.
Yeah, again, we were more than willing to work with them. It was once the death threat started, that's not gonna work. So as far as I'm concerned, this year, the group's not allowed back to be together. If Larry wants to get with us between now and next year and sit down and talk, I'm more willing to talk, but nothing's gonna change after this year for me, just due to those threats and the fact that staff don't feel safe. We've had other people call who are grateful that this has happened, and now that they can go there and have some more fun without the drinking and smoking happening.
I just want to point out that we've had our ordinances in place for the park. As I read at our last meeting, since I believe it is, 2009. And it's very clear in there what the rules are.
Correct.
You know, there's several years, it's very clear. And I would think that an organized group would also know what all the rules are. So.
The group organizer said to me multiple times that because this group has donated money and time, they should be allowed to do what they want. This is the same thing I've heard from other parks as well, that they come in, they donate time and money, they'll break these rules, and then they expect special treatment for it. I don't roll that way. Rules are rules. It's very simple. I was nice. I gave warnings until he made it very clear that he didn't like it, and then just that's again on Facebook. Like that's not okay. I wouldn't have tolerated that from anybody else here. So, in fact, I had a guy jailed last year for making threats towards me. So, which is terrorism. Can't make threats towards a township employee. That's terrorism.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Do I walk back now or stay up here? Let me just pull up a chair and just sit down here.
Are there any other questions for? No.
All right.
Thank you.
If you need me, I'll just be in the corner.
Although I do understand both sides, it seems like there could be more good that could come out of reaching a consensus together to figure out how we could get on the same page. And so perhaps while they may be trespassed from the park, maybe we could begin that process to hold each other accountable for us being a little bit more clear with our expectations, with the sign, with the rules, and then them understanding, you know, maybe just an opportunity to go back to the drawing board and see what went wrong and how to, you know, be willing to work together, but not have, you know, to make threats to township staff. That's not okay, or anybody for that matter. But, you know, I certainly don't say that to undermine the work that Dakota has done, but, you know, there could possibly be ideas on how that could, maybe somebody who is affiliated, that when it went to the media, it's a little confusing to people because they think it's the township, but then it's the parks, and then you explain, well, you know, here's the difference and things like that. So it got out of hand online, as many things do, pretty quick. There's a recent nuisance gathering at a park in Kalamazoo. Did you guys hear about that? What park was that? Spring Valley. And that appeared that it was getting out of hand pretty quick, but then I seen that there was some sort of consensus that they came together, and then that group posted flyers online, and then they were asking, you know, no loud music, and they were demonstrating that you can have a disagreement, but then you can resolve it. And then there can be some respect for the use of the township park and the people around it. And I seen that online and I couldn't help but smile. I mean, it was a little bit of hope for humanity that we can get together after a problem and rectify it. So I don't know if there's any way that I could be of support to talk to individuals or help find common ground, but I'd be glad to do so. Trustee Amos?
Well, my biggest concern is the safety of our citizens and especially our children. And I did not have any idea until recently that we even had a problem in our parks. However, I'm willing to give my support to do whatever I can to help solve these issues and work through them. And if you need me, just give me a call, and I'm willing to help.
Thank you. Just another note, I would encourage dialogue to try to get on a better understanding. And things do happen, unfortunately. And but again, we have to come back to a point where we can communicate and can continue the process that has gone on in the past. We've had, again, a lot of this was a big surprise to me too. I had not heard of issues, and there were some serious issues that were presented. But again, I think we should take stock in what transpired and try to avert that in the future. And I think one of the ways to avert that is to begin a dialogue as quickly as possible. Thank you.
I know what I want to say, but I'm trying to say it correctly. I would like to see us work together. I've always been someone who, when something happens with a customer or a resident, that we give it time to cool down, think about what we did, what we didn't do. I don't like the finger pointing, but I think that people need to know that they need to discipline themselves, and that goes for everybody. And I think I would like to be part of that, to sit down with this group or the people in charge. And I do support Katie and our parks board. I understand why the things were done the way they were. We have a responsibility to not just our residents, but to the property that you, the residents, own. So, yeah, I would like to see us move forward in the right direction and be adults and carry on, move forward.
Thank you, trustees. Any Parks Board questions for us? We're going to adjourn our part of the meeting so you guys can carry on with yours. Thanks for having us, and we're glad to be of support to the Parks Board. So reach out anytime you need.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Okay, we are moving on with our regular meeting. The first item is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, any objections? None noted?
I will abstain.
Oh, very good. Motion passed. That brings us to the June 8th, 2026 meeting minutes, the July 1st special meeting minutes, the June distribution report, the May mercantile bill, and the June mercantile bill.
That was all part of the
And we
consent
just
agenda.
moved to approved? Okay, very good. No other questions? Okay, sorry. Okay, and that takes us to the presentations, security report.
Tyler, would you want to come up and give a report on the last couple weeks?
Do we need a microphone, or is this going to be all right? Here we go. Yeah, I can spare one of those extra mics up there, I think. Just a thought. I'm here with Mr. Adams, the owner of ARMG, the Adams Risk Management Group, who is performing the security function at the parks as directed by the Parks Director. Some of you may know me, so full disclosure, My time at the sheriff's office in emergency management as a public information officer and the mitigation planner for the county. I've run into several of you, so just bear with me on that. That's just for full disclosure. I'm not sure what the exact questions are about the coverage and the way of going forward. The proposals that were provided, the primary bid includes, I think, 4 different options for different hours and flexibility levels and staffing levels. And then the second presentation was the patrol bid. And that may answer some of the questions that I've heard here tonight as far as covering different spots in the parks. And that proposal involves a patrol vehicle and a uniformed armed security person that would be able to respond to radio dispatch from township staff to Merrill, Morris Park, and then a third park to be determined. And that, I think the thinking behind was that would be coverable in a 4-hour shift or a 6-hour shift. And I believe that the quote was $632 per day for a 4-hour shift with the patrol vehicle. It works out to about $79 an hour.
And we can flex it. It doesn't have to be those 3, like, to help make bang for your buck. Like, I understand the budget. Like, I'm not here to, obviously, I run a business, but also, 100% of my staff are actively or retired public safety. So we've either already worked in this community and served this community, or we have retired from serving this community. I am 4th generation public safety. So I want to provide a higher end of service. So you guys, I want you guys to know that I can work with anything with the conversation, because I want to be able to make sure, because you can't solve all problems, but we can solve the important ones or the more immediate ones. And then even if it's only temporary. So whatever I can do to assist, that's what I'm here for.
So to take that just one step further, there was a question earlier about what happens if there's a weather event or the park is shut down or something. It's already been addressed really internally. We just shut it off, shut it down, stop the building, send everybody home. So there's a flexibility there as well. I just want to make sure you knew that. Any questions?
Could you just touch on some of the incidents that you have run into since been doing the job to kind of explain a little bit more what you have been able to help do?
Yeah, so we've had multiple different types of units at the site, besides myself. We've had 2 sworn peace officers that are still licensed peace officers in the state of Michigan, 2 EMTs, and 1 retired federal agent. We ran into, on the first day, there was some conflict with cannabis and cigarettes. It was more of this displeasure, and they for the most part did oblige. And then there was bits and pieces throughout the week, but then our last shift on Sunday, we ran into a lot more issues. We had cigarette issues, we had cannabis, we had propane, we had, there was a dog issue. We did have a issue the day before with a threat to the township of Comstock, and that was provided a detailed incident report for you guys for reference if need be. I did, not physically, but I did remove the person from the facility, and then he did come back. We did have a conversation. He was cordial. He was polite. He minded his own business. I let him about the day. That way, he could enjoy the park. There was little, on Sunday, there was little problems enforcing. Everyone followed the directives. They all obliged. The big one was the hidden alcohol. The person was very calm and polite. So I said, tell you what, put it in your vehicle, in your trunk. Don't get it until you get back home. You and your family can, enjoy the rest of the park. He was very grateful, and that was enforced. So.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
You create a formal report then?
Yes, it was emailed to Katie.
Okay. And you'd mentioned a formal threat? So
yes, it was included in that report.
Okay. Okay.
Does a formal threat then get relayed to the actual sheriff's department, or?
Yes, so there was I made contact with, pardon, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but a female deputy that was out there. I did advise her the situation. They're going, if they can, increase patrols. I did give, because do have capabilities to run license plates. So I did run the license plates and get that person's information to provide the report and to the sheriff's department so they can, do their thing. And that was rectified, and they were made aware, and we'll look out for it.
So the threat was addressed by them being made aware of it?
The threat was addressed by me.
Right.
Sheriff's Department was aware of another threat, and that they would increase if they can, more patrols. Okay. But they will be made aware via their command that there is another threat.
Are there any other questions? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you.
Now we move on to our business items, the first of which is listed closed session. So we're going to go into closed session at this time.
I think we just want to make note of the time that we go into closed session, and then if, I think you're supposed to invite me into it.
Yes, closed session request, okay. Present will be all of our commissioners, Parks commissioners. Okay, and inviting Katie Bush, Parks Director. And then the purpose of the closed session is just performance evaluation, discussion.
I think we need to read the motion. I can do that.
Yes, please.
Okay. I move that the Park Board meet in closed session under Section 81H of the Open Meetings Act pursuant to Section 13(1)A of the Freedom of Information Act to discuss a personnel evaluation requested by Parks Director Katie Bush.
We did, we already ate it.
No, but you're taking me to dinner.
You're taking all of us.
Okay, the time is 9:09. Okay, I need a motion.
I move that we end closed session at 9:09 PM.
Are there any objections? None noted. Motion passed. And so we are reopening our session of the regular Parks and Recreation Department regular meeting. And that takes us next, let's see, we have business items next, park safety. Okay, that's what you have here.
I think we were going to do a motion before that, I thought.
Okay,
I can make it if you like.
yes.
So I move that we, I don't even know how to say that. I move that the board as a whole approve a vote of confidence.
Issue a vote of.
Issue, thank you. I didn't know how to say that. Issue a vote of confidence for Parks Director Katie Bush.
Any objection? None taken? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Okay, that next takes us to our reports and correspondence. Do you have anything for us, Kate?
I do not.
You're done. And then on to the revenue and expenditure report and director's report. Any questions? Concerns? None? The June revenue and expenditure report? Any questions? None? The July director's report? Any questions? Concerns? No?
One quick thing on the Winky field lights. I know that we've talked about the problem. Are you making any headway or able to make any headway in starting to get some quotes and idea to what that's going to take?
Unfortunately, I have not.
Okay, moving on. Are there any member comments or announcements? None? Okay, is there a motion for adjournment? 9:12 PM?
I move to adjourn the meeting at 9:12 PM.
No objections? Motion carried. Okay, that concludes our meeting.